Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's screening of the sessions. My name is Julie MacArthur, and I work with the programming team here at TIFF. We're going to be doing a Q&A, so just raise your hands high, and I'll try to get to everybody. Please join me in welcoming to the stage the producer of the sessions, Judi Levine, and the director of the sessions, Ben Lewin. And perhaps I could just start by asking Ben how you first came across the story of Mark O'Brien and his writings and why you decided to make this film.
I came across this story in the course of wasting time surfing the internet, as one does, and stumbled across this article which he wrote called On Seeing a Sex Surrogate. It was absolutely riveting. At the end of it, I was deeply moved and initially suspicious of my own reaction, and felt that maybe this was only a story that appealed to people in iron lungs, and subsequently found out and convinced myself, and I hope you, that this is a universal story, certainly embracing everyone's fear of sex. 5 years later, we managed to present a film about it.
Fantastic. Are there any questions in the audience?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Two, actually. I was interested, I'd be interested to know how you went about casting the lead role. And I also noticed in the credits that Cheryl and Susan are thanks for being consultants. So I guess I want to know how the friends of Mark O'Brien were willing to help in the project.
So the first question is about the casting of John Hawkes as Mark and how that process went. And the next question was about, she saw in the thank yous that some of the people who were actually the characters are based on were thanked, and what involvement they had in the film.
Initially, I had a hope that I might cast a disabled person as Mark O'Brien, but this was not to be. I mean, the idea of casting someone who was partially disabled and pretending to be as seriously disabled as he was didn't really appeal. And in any case, the result of auditioning disabled actors, I couldn't find someone experienced enough to do it. The beauty of John Hawkes, apart from the fact that he's an unbelievable actor, is that he's pretty scrawny, and we were able to avoid the whole nightmare of having to use some kind of body double or some special tricks to persuade people that he was as disabled as he appeared to be. The truth is, John has in the past been cast in these kind of spooky, creepy guy roles, which are nothing like he is as an individual. I mean, from a personality point of view, he's more like Mark O'Brien than any of the other parts he's played. He's a total sweetheart. And a complete chameleon as an actor who really was able to adopt a role that many other actors would have found totally daunting. The other part of your question about engaging with people who are actually part of the story, I don't think we could have done it without them, actually. Susan Fernbach, his girlfriend, really was a literary soulmate for me during the writing process, and you know, we really felt that her blessing on the whole project was you know, something that gave us confidence. And Cheryl Green, once we met her, was the most extraordinary person. That it was clear that unpeeling the onion on what a sex surrogate was about was going to be one of the most dynamic elements of the story.
Any other questions? Yes, over there.
How hard was it to film these sex scenes? You've got a whole crew around you. How hard was it? Yeah.
The question is about how hard was it to film those sex scenes?
It wasn't very hard for me. Look, I guess that we had certain elements which made it a lot easier. Number one, John couldn't move. We had a fabulous cameraman, Jeffrey Simpson, who made Helen, above all, feel really what you see, completely comfortable in her skin, and allowed us to get that kind of sense of banality about being naked, not having to go to that, you know, panties sliding down the legs kind of stuff. I'd say that the difficulty of the first scene, the very first time they had an intimate scene together, and the awkwardness of that moment was something that was actually used by the actors in their performance. They really didn't know each other, and I would say that a lot of the tension and anxiety is actually real. So there is, in some ways, you know, we were able to use the difficulty of the scene to represent the difficulty of the original event. And I think that in a strange way, they followed the path of what really happened in getting to know each other and feeling more comfortable. At least that's how it seemed to me, sitting slightly off the set watching this occur.
Any other questions? Yes, over here. So the question again is about casting. It is a fantastic ensemble cast in this film, and whether or not it's a coincidence that 3 of the actors actually come from Deadwood.
Yes. Well, look, in the course of finding out who John Hawkes was, I think I watched every single episode of Deadwood, and I couldn't help but be impressed by the rest of the cast. And somehow John would, you know, these all were friends of John's, and he told them, look, you must go to audition for this movie. And, you know, thus the result. It wasn't as if I had any policy about doing it or any inclination that I would. It's just the way it happened. And I don't think I could have made better choices. I mean, I think it's extraordinary. You know, it's extraordinary when Robert Wyatt first turned up. I just didn't see, I thought, what, this was Calamity Jane? It just seemed plausible, but there you are.
It does seem to be really a family affair. Even your daughter worked on the film as well. Was there a real family dynamic during making this film?
Well, I think that's probably
Yes, I think this film has really actually changed our family in quite a significant way. For many, many years, I think our children believed we were just delusional, that we wouldn't actually make another movie, and that Ben wasn't really sitting down in his office writing anything. He was probably just playing Scrabble on the internet. But the way it ended up, we had our eldest daughter, who was 26, work with us all the way through, and she was absolutely my right-hand person. She was extraordinary. Our son, who is studying to compose the composition for classical music, was a key person in contributing to our ideas about the music and Ben's thoughts when he was working with the composer Margot Beltrami. And our youngest one, who's 12, is the little girl running on the beach, the little boy in the flashback scene. So it did really, I think, bring us all together in a way that, there's a big age spread, as you can tell, and all of us feel very connected to this project. Hopefully each of them will get to have the same experience of seeing it at a festival, which Helen Hunt's going to come to a festival on the West Coast, so that'll be a good thing.
Any other questions? Yes?
When Helen Hunt returns says, I love you to him, was she pretending? In what way did she mean it? Was she pretending? Was she confessing? And if she was confessing it to him, how does she settle that in her mind being the therapist and having that separation
So the question is about the scene in which Helen Hunt returns his affection and says, "I love you" as well, and whether or not you think this was her pretending or whether it was a confession, and how she dealt with that in terms of her own role as a therapist.
I'm not sure whether you mean whether the character in the movie was pretending. Yes? No, I don't think so. I mean, it wasn't our intention to mimic or clone the original Cheryl Cohen-Green. It was really our intention to kind of follow her journey along with Mark's. And if you were to meet the real Cheryl, there's a complete plausibility about how emotionally open she is and how difficult it is to tread that line between professionalism and a connection with her clients, you know, resulting from the physical connection. I think probably that moment, I certainly believed it, and I believe it was a genuine moment between them, and also the point at which they realised that crossed into dangerous territory beyond which there was probably going to be as much pain as pleasure in emotional terms. So, in a word, I think the answer is yes, that was a spontaneous and sincere moment.
I think also that Cheryl is very open about the fact that she is now married to somebody who was a client of hers, and so clearly she had been in that place herself, and may have spoken to Helen about that, I don't know, but it happens. I think it's probably very controversial in terms of whether or not, how close you get to that line and what is appropriate, and I suspect quite a lot of discussion about that down the road when the film was released. But Cheryl did in fact fall in love with one of her clients, and they've been happily married, I think, for about 20 years. So she's still working as a grandmother and working, but very happy. It's good.
I believe it's also polite after you have a simultaneous or close to orgasm to say that to each other.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
When did Mark O'Brien die in relation to how soon you started doing the when he died?
So the question is about when Mark O'Brien died and how soon after did you discover the material, or was it while he was still alive?
Yeah, Mark O'Brien died in 1999, and what was the other part of the question?
When did we start doing the film? Mark died in '99, and so we never knew him. That's probably our greatest regret, is that we were never able to get to know him. And we started working on this. Ben stumbled across the story in late 2006, and we met Susan Fernbach in very early 2007, in January of 2007. So between really sort of taking off with the story and sort of knowing that Ben was going to go down and sit as a Hollywood and write the screenplay to when we finished the film and sold it earlier this year, it was 6 years, I think, almost to the day. 5 or 6 years.
Mark died, by the way, of breathing problems, not unexpectedly, of bronchitis.
And on that slightly sad note, please join me in thanking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.